3 units building.
We saw gas price today at $5.99.
Good evening. This is the Monday, March 10th, 2025 Design Review Commission meeting. We're going to open up the meeting with the call to order. Roll call. Glenn Cass, present as chair.
Travis Castle, present.
John Gray, present.
Richard Stanton, present.
Okay, and Armin is not present. Did he announce that he wasn't? Okay, thank you. Item 3, adoption of agenda. We have a March 10th meeting agenda. Are there any comments, changes, or a motion to approve?
Move to adopt?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Public comments for items that are not on the agenda that are of the purview of this commission. Do I have any comments on Zoom or in the audience?
Nobody on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Consent calendar. We have draft minutes of the meeting for February 24th. Do we have any changes, comments, or motion to? approve?
I had one little edit. On page 4, line 30, strike the word not. That's actually the opposite of what I believe I said.
Okay,
I'll move that we adopt the minutes with that.
change.
I would second that.
Okay, do we have a vote? Aye.
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 Thank you. No study session today, and item 7A is HDP 15-22, GR 14-24. Mayall is the owner. This is a property at Two Doors Park. It had come to the commission to DRC several weeks ago, and this is a follow-up. Staff report.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Zittle. I'm the project planner for this hillside development permit and grading permit. As Chip Cass mentioned, this application previously went before the DRC on January 27th, and it was recommended it be continued to this date. And so today I will be going over the changes that have come of that continuation. So starting off, at the previous meeting, the DRC provided comments and recommendations to the applicant team to reduce the size and scale and exposure of the proposed home. As a result of this, the applicant team has revised the first and second story floor plans to meet those comments. So what's shown on the screen is the first story floor plan. And it's overlaid of what was previously reviewed and what the revisions are. The previous plans are in red and the revisions are in green. And on this first floor plan, we can see that the western wall, which is to the left, has been pulled back 4 feet from what was originally proposed. In looking at the second story plan, similar to the previous slide, green shows the revisions, red shows what was originally shown. They have removed the closet area along the southern elevation, so along the front, which is at the bottom of this image, pushing that wall back about 4 feet. And on the western elevation to the right, we can also see it is also slightly pulled back. As a result of scaling back the first and second stories, some of the windows shifted on this south elevation, which is the front of the property. Highlighted in green is the window to the dining room along the first story, and as a result, of that first story being reduced in size, the window now rests along the edge of that first story. We can also see that the roof line above the first story has extended more across the front facade. At the last meeting, special attention was paid to this western side elevation. This is the side of the property that would be closest to the property line. And there were both staff, public, and commissioner concern over the privacy impacts. On the left is shown what was originally shown to the DRC. And comments were made to reduce the size of the windows and do anything to just scale back the exposure and help reduce any sort of privacy impacts. As a result, the applicant team has revised the plan shown on the right side to looking at the first story, which is in the middle, to reduce the size of the windows and shift those to the outer edges of the wall. Looking at the second story, they've actually increased the windows from 4 feet tall to 5 feet tall. As a result of the window shift and also, as mentioned earlier, the scaling back of the stories, the roof line above the basement, the lower roof line has been extended, and on the second story, well, I guess the roof line above the first story has been reduced in size. One of the comments and recommendations that staff and DRC recommended was to provide more screening vegetation along the western property line, outlined in blue on the slide. And as a result of this, the applicant has proposed 6 yew pines. They are a screening shrub. They would be in columnar form and would reach up to about 6 feet tall. The columnar form and the yew pine is kind of shown an example in the image on the slide. And this would further provide some screening of that western face. Because this application was continued to a date certain, no additional notice of public hearing was sent out to neighbors. However, after publication of the agenda and staff report, staff did receive 2 public comments from neighbors at 1 Dulles Park Road and 1108 North Thompson Road. Those are the properties adjacent to the west and to the north. And they again voiced concern over the privacy impact to their property and the apparent height of the proposed structure. Staff has reviewed the project revisions and is able to make the findings to recommend to the DRC that the DRC find the project exempt from CEQA and adopt resolution 2025-03, approving the project subject to conditions. Staff will note that in the staff recommendation in the agenda, the wrong resolution number was listed, but the resolution number shown on this slide is the correct resolution number. Thank you.
Questions for staff? I have one question. The yew pines, the fence there, is it deer fence wire or is it redwoods fence?
Redwood, it's a redwood fence.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, move on to the applicant. 10 minutes. You know.
I don't know if I can work this on the right, because we're on the left. No, I think Nicole did a good job of summarizing things. I only had really one correction is the upper floor, we actually pushed back another 2 feet, not just a few inches. And that's was a function of moving this first floor back 4 feet and so what, and then we pushed the windows on the first floor apart to the corners to direct the view kind of around the house below us instead of looking right down on their patio. And to break up the wall in between them now, which is a big blank wall, we popped a box out for a fireplace. So there's additional articulation on that wall as well. And then on the front, we did push that, got rid of that closet, pushed it back so that roof line continues over farther. reducing the mass of the block that's behind the front porch, front door. And because of the roof changes, we were able to make the windows on the upper floor a little taller, which then matched the rest of the windows on the upper floor in the house. So there's a little more unity there. So I think, and then with the landscaping changes, I think we have addressed all the points that you guys brought up in the last meeting. So I'm hoping that you can find your way to approve the resolution. And that Nicole wrote up for us. And unless there are any questions, that's all I've got.
Okay, questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Nicole, could you put up drawing C4, please? It's the side sections. My question has to do with the screening shrubs at that, let's see, is it the west side of the property? Above One Dallas Park?
Mhm.
6-foot pine trees down the slope from the house. I'm just wondering if how that's reflected on the section and when section C on this page.
Okay, I did not revise that sheet for this submittal.
I mean, 6 feet is probably about the height from the ground to the first floor plate, I think. I'm interpreting this section right. So I'm not sure that 6 feet high is enough to really screen the view to the property below.
Actually, it doesn't, because of the fence, top of the fence, and that's it. It doesn't do any screening. The fence does the screening.
Well, I guess we were looking at it the other way too, is that when they're looking up at the house, it would provide some screening.
I think they don't want to see your windows.
Right, and that's why we pushed them to
They don't want you
the,
to from windows to look out.
Yeah.
Don't have any windows.
that's why we pushed them to the corners so that,
Well, anyway, my point is, I believe, well, I shouldn't get to my comments yet, that just, so on this image, the dark masses that are the planting do not include the new pines, and the new pines would be close to the bottom of that slope, is that?
correct,
John?
yeah. Right near the property line.
Okay, well, I'll save the rest for comments, thank you.
Any other? Okay, we'll open this up for audience comments. Do we have any speakers in the audience or on Zoom?
As a reminder, if you're joining by phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. We do have one raised hand.
Okay,
Gupta, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My wife and I are the neighbors at One Dallas Park Road. We purchased our home in 2011 and have raised our family, including our children, now 9 and 11, here, all amid significant upgrades and revisions to our own home presented to these committees. We want to state clearly we're supportive of renovations to 2 Dallas Park Road and are very excited for our neighbors, the Mayles. Our ongoing concern is regarding the massive expansion of the revised project, which is out of character to the community and significantly reduces our privacy. The revised home would be highly visible from our home, including all of our outside living areas, master bedroom, dining room, kitchen, and upstairs. It should be stated that we believe the privacy is appropriate with their current home as it is presently scaled, or even with the modest expansion. We understand we're downhill from our neighbor, but this is not the crux of the privacy issue, and we understand that Lafayette is a community of hills. Specifically regarding our concerns on the loss of privacy, the first point is that the revised home is listed as an expansion of an existing 1,232 square foot home, now markedly improved on a 0.16 acre lot. Secondly, the revised proposal as pertains to the western facade, which our home faces, is now leading to a minimized 10-foot setback to our fence, which is significantly less than the current setback. And this large increase in the height of the proposed structure is now 3 stories and 36 feet 8 inches. Our request would be hopefully a more appropriately scaled project in the scale and style of the existing neighborhood that is not too tall or massive in relation to the surrounding neighborhood. And then number 2, on the landscaping of the western facade, better landscaping to maximize the privacy. The proposed addition of 6 15-gallon yew pines in column form that grow to 6 feet high when and if mature would be at the fence line, and it would not provide any screening. It should be changed to something significantly taller, higher than the existing fence line in our seasonal vine to provide actual screening. That would at least go a very long way to providing some more privacy with this massive expansion. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, that's the only hand raised.
Okay,
I think that
Oh,
what,
sorry.
it's not,
Somebody else raised their hands.
Would it do a presentation?
no, I just want to say about a yew tree and its height. It starts at, I think there's,
If you could wait, we have 5 minutes.
We have a
allowed for
rebuttal
that
period.
after public comment. Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay, next up, we have Katie Mayall. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, can you all hear me okay?
yes,
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Mail. I'm the daughter of the applicants and grew up in that house on 2 Dallas Park Road. You all heard from me last time, and I just wanted to reiterate that although I know 2 public comments were received expressing concerns in the last committee session when we were here, we heard vigorous support from a number of neighbors in relation to the project. And I also, as expressed last time, I just want to reiterate that I have 2 aging parents who you see in front of you, and that while this is sort of being negotiated or debated, they are both going up and down an incredibly steep driveway, a set of incredibly steep stairs to get into their house every single day in a way that really truly worries me for their age. And so I understand that, the idea of us even pushing this back to, bicker over a foot or 2 or 3 feet seems to me just the risk that this poses at the same time to my parents does not seem like it could possibly be worth it. And so I just wanted to express just my vigorous support for this project moving forward, for not having more delays in relation to this and just being able to move the project on. We really appreciate your consideration. Thank you so much.
okay, thank you. Any other?
We do not have any further here.
Okay, we have a rebuttal period, 5 minutes.
Hi. Bill Mayo here, regarding the privacy issue for number 1. The house has been there 88 years. The side of the house that faced number 1 for 88 years has had 2 windows facing them, 4 feet by 5 feet each, which is 40 square feet of glass, plus a front door with 3 feet by 4 feet. Total of 52 square feet of window facing number 1, including the front door of the house, which would again bring more exposure. The front door of the house is now moved to the other side. So that area of intrusion has been removed. And we had comments from people before that I think summed it up pretty clearly, that there are certain parties that are not going to be happy with any new development there at all. They would like it to not be done. But that's not the way it's supposed to work. From the outset, we have been within all the limitations of the height restrictions, the setbacks, the ground coverage. We have made 2 large revisions of that. I think we've done what should be required of us. While we had a little pause there, my wife looked up the fact that yew trees can grow to be 65 feet tall. So yes, 6 feet is one height. You can see them, but they can be higher. So that's not as big a factor as we might have thought. My daughter thinks we're getting old. I think she'll think 75 is that old, but she's entitled to her opinion too. So that's just a couple of things I thought we should bring up. That if you want to be totally isolated and have absolutely no exposure to anyone else, you can buy a house in Forest somewhere, as Mr. Reddy pointed out last time, or they have these things called curtains, window shades. If you're really obsessed with keeping your private life private, close the curtain, pull the shade. But I don't feel that that concern should prevent us from having a house. Anything you guys want to add on that?
No, just the U tree was all, it's not 6 feet. I think our landscape architect, which I didn't check his work, but he was looking for something that would grow rapidly as he understood what the case was. And I think he's saying he's gonna start out at 6 feet tall upon their planting. But I just looked it up and U trees grow to be massive.
65 feet. It should be more than that.
Okay. Commissioner comments, who would like to start this evening?
I can start, sure. Well, first I'd like to say thank you for listening to our comments last time. I think the fact that you have stepped back the house somewhat on that west side, even though it's not a large distance, just reducing the sense of the continuous facade and stepping a little back from your neighbors, I think was a concession I hope the neighbors appreciate. If the yew trees grow as you suggest, then and provide appropriate screening, then I have no concerns further. I think that you've made reasonable accommodations on privacy and massing, and I appreciate that.
Sure, so I was out of town when this item was heard in the last meeting, so I have not spoken on it before, but my impression of the design is I think it does a good job on a very constrained site of actually stepping into the hillside and fitting into the site. It is tall, but again, you've got a garage that's down, half underground. And I think I appreciate the way that the elevations of the house do have articulation and do step in the way the roof slopes go back. So I think it is fine. I think it fits the site well. And I think that the applicant, based on what I read in the minutes from the previous meeting, also appeared to have addressed all of the commission's comments from the previous meeting. Those are my only comments. I guess I would just add, so yew pine, so there's yew trees and there's yew pine is a subset of that, but I can't imagine that it would be limited to a 6 foot height. I mean, that's just the nature of that kind of plant is going to be bigger. But I don't know that particular species.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I can, once you're done with your comments.
Travis?
Well, I'm curious if you had something to ask.
Oh, yeah, no, I was gonna suggest maybe a recommended condition to have the landscaper verify with staff the height of the yew pine.
Certainly.
As part of the construction drawings.
Yeah, the way I read it, 15, 16 gallon, they're probably gonna show up 6 feet.
That's what I think,
And
Jim.
I think it was just misstated
I think
that
that's
they're
what
gonna stop at 6 feet. I mean, you can top a tree and if you want it, but anybody can do that. Yeah, I was past the site today and it's I can hear both sides of the argument. It's just a really compact neighborhood and you should be allowed to build what you want on your own dirt within the zoning requirements. And you've done everything that we've asked you to do. And sorry you've had such a long go.
Okay, I appreciate the improvements. I would actually like to see the west upper windows changed to the 4 foot height back. I think psychologically, if nothing else, the smaller they are, the less. And since we already had that smaller size, it doesn't really, I don't think it affects it that much. I understand what your purpose was, is to make them all look similar, but I don't think that it's a detriment to make them smaller. In regards to the resolution, if I understand the new tree ordinance, I think we should have the yew pines listed as protected trees because that was their purpose, is for screening. And right now, we only have T1, T2, and T3 as protected trees. I can't make the finding for One Doors that it's out of character, the size of this, it's very big, I will have to say, but there are other houses on that street that are of similar size. So the only house that's out of character is a single house right next to it, maybe some across the street, but it's not out of character to the condition where it changes the whole character of the neighborhood. So I find that, you know, it's big, but we've made changes. So that's it. Do we have a resolution? A motion for resolution?
Motion to approve.
Okay, so,
We can actually have you read the resolution on the screen.
well, okay, so do we want to do anything about the windows or you want to skip that?
That's up to you guys.
I don't have a strong feeling either way. Do you have a strong feeling of keeping them in accordance with the new design, or are you okay with going back to the sill height it was before?
If that's a condition of getting approved, we'd go back, but I would prefer to keep them bigger.
But that's the windows that the neighbors are you know, that's the higher ones that look right down in their backyard, nothing but their backyard.
It's a change in the sill height, am I right?
Yeah.
Because of where the
Yeah.
slope of the adjacent roof is.
But that is a bedroom, it's not a living space too, so I'm not sure the view
You
is
can't
as
tell that from the
critical.
outside. I mean, if you see a window when you're in your backyard, you don't know if anybody is looking at it.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. I would agree with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we make that change and we make the change on the protected tree.
Yep.
And the rest of the resolution is as stated by staff. And you want to read
Do you
the
want to have
statement?
the landscape architect reach out to staff?
Yeah,
Verify that you hide it.
Motion to approve the project exempt from CEQA and adopt resolution 2025-3, approving the project subject to said conditions.
I'll second the motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Don't start building
Thank
yet.
you, guys.
Don't start building. There's an appeal process, maybe.
Oh, but you don't think so.
Okay. Next item on the agenda. New public hearing. This is DR 18-24. SAJ Development is the owner. This is a multi-parcel property on, I never remember, Oak Hill Road. We saw it as a study session a couple of weeks ago. Is back now as a defined project.
Yeah.
And let's see, who is our staff person? Jean, is Jean?
She's
just
joining
left
us
it.
by Zoom.
Oh,
Hello. Good evening, Chaircast, members of the commission. As Chaircast indicated, you did see this project a couple months ago. I'm going to recap the main project data and then highlight a few changes since that January meeting. The project site is located on Oak Hill Road between Mount Diablo Boulevard and Highway 24. The project includes demolition of all 3 commercial buildings on the site. That's about 9,000 square feet. Removal of approximately 23 trees and the merger of 4 parcels into 1 parcel. The project includes construction of 90 units, including 11 below market rate units, 2,000 square feet of commercial development in a 7-story building. Slight change in the parking count down to 183 parking spaces, as well as 52 bike spaces inside the building and including 8 on the sidewalk. At the joint meeting in January with the Planning Commission, this is a summary of the feedback that we heard. Generally, that yes, the building is tall, but it's well designed, and the way it is massed helps reduce that apparent massing of the building. There's a deep courtyard in the center, horizontal details as well as vertical details. Mentioned in terms of some of those high quality aspects of the project were the quality of the materials, the color palette, the shadow lines, the types of windows and doors, and the trees and landscaping on the property, as well as details called out here, including the C channels being high quality structural elements and not sheet metal. The commission suggested taking another look at the south elevation. That's the elevation that's seen from, if you're walking up from Mount Diablo Boulevard, to making sure that's well designed, that it's well landscaped. A request to meet the proportional criteria of the city's inclusionary housing ordinance. The applicant at the time was requesting a concession under state law. And then lastly, to work with East Bay Mud to coordinate protection of offsite trees. So I'm going to highlight a couple, these last two bullets, I'll highlight the key changes. And then there's no longer a concession request. The project now does meet the inclusionary requirement and that proportional bedroom type or bedroom number, unit type requirement. They have made some changes to the height of retaining walls. And so you see a new plan view, or excuse me, elevation view in the plan set showing that. So in terms of the last two bullets, first, the driveway access. So on top is the version of the plan that you previously reviewed. There's two garage entrances, garage entrance to level 1 of the parking garage and level 2 further to the west. This assumed that the applicant would be able to extend the existing easement and make an agreement with the adjacent property owner. That has not yet taken place. And so the current proposal is to use just the existing access easement, which is the flag shape shown on the bottom. And so you see the garages reconfigured. So again, we have a garage entrance to level 1, and then at the diagonal, a garage entrance to level 2 off of that existing access easement. Second change is to the south elevation, and that's to the landscape plan. So same, you see some of the same planted islands, some extension of you see the change in the garage entrance, but some additional trees planted within those planter strips. And so the resulting in the south elevation are some additional trees to help soften that first level where you have the parking garages. As I mentioned, this is a project proposed under state density bonus law. That's how the applicant's able to achieve the 90 units on the site. And to do that, they've requested a series of waivers to parking design, to the height of the building, ground level landscaping, and to the massing and upper story step backs. With those waivers, the project does comply with both the downtown objective design standards and the city's new zoning district that's now gone into effect, the Special Retail Business District 60. The project meets the realistic capacity identified in the housing element for the site and is categorically exempt from CEQA. The staff recommendation is to ask the Design Review Commission to review the proposal for the application to the Planning Commission with any conditions for design details. Following the Planning Commission review, City Council will take final action since this is a state density bonus project requesting waivers. That is it for my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Any questions by commissioners? None, Jean. So we'll move on to the applicant. 10 minutes. Thank you.
We're gonna split our time.
No problem.
Chair Cass and fellow commissioners, thank you for your service to the city. You know, your input is obviously valuable, and hopefully the way we've responded to the initial comments from January, you're gonna be happy to hear that we're trying to be collaborative. I'm one of the partners in SAJ Development. David Marshall's here also from our team, and then Isaiah is going to run through the updates we've made and a little bit for one of you who I don't think attended last time, you know, the project overall. So you'll see some changes and then a quick kind of same presentation in many ways. I think Jeannie did a good job describing, which I was going to do, but now I'm not, the changes that we have responded to. I think the one unknown here that we maybe did not respond to totally is the referral agencies. We have engaged back and forth with Contra Costa County Fire Protection District several times. They did make a referral comment about a high rise. We've worked with them recently with several projects, including 950 Huff, which is under construction. We do intend to come up, our building permit obviously be conditioned upon their approval. So that's the ultimate satisfaction. But we'll use AMMRs with different sorts of standpipes and other provisions because there's not a fire truck that would reach the top of the building right now. So other accommodations were made. Isaiah and his team have designed different exiting that contemplates those AMMRs. So we should be able to get through that. And then Republic Services is the other one. We have engaged a little bit with them. We'll be more specific now about sizing and dimensionality, but I think anything will be done will be within the interior of the building, really minor, and hopefully nothing that you can't approve staff to modify if necessary. So again, thank you, and Isaiah, take over.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Jeannie. So I'm Isaiah Stackhouse of Stackhouse Day Lafayette, Beckenberg. Nice to be back here tonight. Here is rendering from Oak Hill in the evening. Again, largely, this is what you saw in January, with some minor tweaks and improvements in response to your comments. And again, just for reference, this is a previously approved project in May of last year on the same site. So again, project site on Oak Hill, Highway 24, Terrace Way. Again, there's a 60-foot drop from this back corner down to the front. So we've really utilized that to step the building into the hillside. As noted, the site is now formally zoned SRB 60. Here are the revised circulation diagrams. I think Jeannie did a great job of covering that. This stays within the easement and allows us to also save a tree here that's in the median. Here is the ground level plan. We've got the 2,000 square foot corner commercial to activate facade, a residential lobby across the front here, a large, well landscaped setback and sidewalk. The garage here, we've got a bike room that's providing close to 3 times as many bikes as required. And again, one thing about the overall design here, we've gone to great lengths to really push these building cores back as far as we possibly could in order to facilitate the stepping up above. We'll see that as we walk up the plans. Here's a level 2 plan with a level 2 courtyard, units at level 2 here. And then this newly oriented garage driveway here. And as Jeannie noted in response to a comment from the January hearing, added trees along Terrace Way. Here's a level 5 plan. Again, we've stepped the building down to 4 stories here along Oak Hill. We have community rooms and terraces at the front here. And then up at level 5, this is actually at grade because of the grade drop from here up to here. So we're proposing residential lounge and pool. As Jeannie noted, we have refined and reduced retaining walls so that facing the neighbor, we're primarily just a 6-inch curb with a fence on top now. In terms of the overall project, we're providing over 17,000 square feet of open space where only 10,500 is required. And we're up to 34% of the site. Over a third is now covered in open space. Here's a level 6 plan as the building continues to step back. And level 7, where we peel the building back to these cores that again, we pulled deep within the project, while still being able to provide 2 exits from any point in the building. We've got proposing a very family-friendly unit mix. It's very heavy on the 2s and 3-bedroom units. Again, it's a project that has 11 BMR units, and as noted in the Jeannie's presentation, in response to the hearing in January, you might recall we were proposing a concession to provide a 1-bedroom instead of a 3-bedroom. We went back to the drawing board, sharpened our pencils on that, and were able to upgrade that 1-bedroom to a family 3-bedroom unit. Great to be able to report that today. Here's the section through the hillside, again, where we're 4 stories down Oak Hill and stepping up. And here's that in 3D, in a photo context view along Oak Hill looking south. And here's looking back up Oak Hill in the other direction. We're proposing a rich earthy palette of high quality materials, integral color plaster, inset aluminum windows, a wood accent material, thermery. We're proposing painted steel railings and balconies with, as we discussed last time, with true steel C channels and not just oil canning, sheet metal. But what we're trying to do here is really create a well-detailed, carefully crafted building that's designed to stand the test of time. Here's an evening view of Oak Hill Road. Landscape plan, again, extensive landscaping throughout, setbacks. We're proposing 99 new trees spread throughout the site. Landscape 2, showing residential courtyard at level 2. Then as the building steps up, the courtyard at level 3. And finally, the overall landscape plan that includes up on level 5 here, the on-grade terrace, walkway up to Terrace Way, and the terraces off of the community rooms at level 5. So that concludes our overview presentation. But we welcome your questions and comments.
Okay, commissioners, any questions at this point?
I've got a couple.
Yeah.
The revision of the affordable units, thank you for doing that. I did listen to the conversation, although I couldn't be there in January, at YouTube. Did you change anything in your layout to accommodate that? Or was it just a matter of redesignating?
It's just a matter of moving the BMR tag to a bigger unit.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, thank you for that. Regarding the windows you described as inset, about what is the distance from your glass plane to your adjacent facade plane?
I would, well, typically we inset the aluminum window itself 2 inches, and then the glass is typically another inch or 2, depending on the exact brand we end up with.
And the siding is just wrapped to come to the aluminum window frame?
Yeah, so normally we will, we'll frame 2x6 wall, and then we'll down frame the 2x4. And then the window will install in the 2x4, the finish will wrap into the window.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You said that you didn't finish negotiation on the west easement. Does that mean that the south facade may change again back to the old condition? Or are you staying with the slanted garage entrance?
That's a great question. At this point, I think all indications are we'll stick with this. There is an island, an existing island, Terrace Way. If you were to go out there today, you would have no idea that that's not a public street. I mean, it looks to all indications, you can leave from Mount Diablo way over here, drive up the hill, drive through. Everyone comes and goes as they please. But when it comes to the legal easement, our legal easement is only here, but there is also an island right here that contains a nice tree. And it's, beyond our ability to take out that island on someone else's property. So, so this angle, gives the project surety and also I think, has an advantage too of, directing all traffic, direct out to Oak Hill. It's more direct and less impact on neighbors up the hill. So, I think because we're able to redesign it in a way that our civil thinks works well, and we did lose a couple of parking spots, but the project is still very well parked. We're comfortable with that. So,
yeah, I think the other thing is it does serve as traffic calming with that island there. If we were to remove the island to facilitate the other entry, people would probably use Terrace Way and all the way over to South Thompson a lot more for a cut through the liquor store. So this kind of orients people in and out of where we think the main entry will be.
Yeah, I think it's an improvement, actually. Yeah. Okay, public comments. Start with anyone in the audience here. Do we have anyone on Zoom?
We have no raised hands at the moment.
Okay.
Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak on this item.
So you were going to battle our questions? We'll slide along here. Let's get commissioner comments. Who wants to start this one? Richard?
Sure, so I commented in the last meeting, I think that this is a nice project. I really appreciate the way that the building steps back and has lots of visual interest with the center courtyard, and there's just lots of good design things going on with it. I think it fits the site well. I did have concerns about that south elevation that I mentioned in the previous meeting, you know, without some significant impacts to really making things smaller. I don't think that that's easily reconciled. So I think at this point, my inclination would be to go with it the way it's designed. And I appreciate that, you know, landscaping can help some, but you know, but that's limited to what kind of relief it can provide. The other thing I raised last time was just about the parking and how that's going to work inside the building. We don't really have any more information of how that mechanized parking system works. I think it's important that the city at some point get the details and get assurances that it's really going to work properly, because I think it would be a disaster if people decided that, you know, that lived there decided it was too much trouble and tried to park in the community as a whole. You know, I can just see that as a potential thing that would happen, and then they would take up all the street parking, and you would have kind of a mess. So I really think the city, whether it's more of a planning commission issue, and I'm happy deferring it to them, and planning staff also, but I think really between planning staff and really the applicant is where I think it needs to go, is get some more detail of how that works and how it's gonna lay out. The parking garage on the ground floor, you know, it has 290-degree turns in it. It seems awkward. You come in, you do a hard right, and then you do a hard left, and then you're gonna go left into the parking system. It seems awkward. I think it needs resolution. It's conceptual. I get that, you know, at this point, it's fine enough for these purposes, but I really do think it needs to get detailed and get some assurances for the city that it's gonna work in a good way. And the only other concern that I've mentioned, and I think we talked about previously, is just the landscaping, again, the specifics of, you know, I'm not really able to tell from what I saw, you know, exactly what trees are gonna go where, and that the tree wells are gonna be deep enough for the type of plants that get planted there. And, you know, those, again, it's just a more detailed look, but I think the fact that there is landscaping on those upper terraces is great. And I think it's just the detail of how that's gonna work that needs to get worked out. So those are my comments at this point.
Don, you want to?
Okay, well, I agree with Richard's comments generally. You know, this is a large building. If I'm not mistaken, it'll be the biggest building in town. And yet I think you've done a lot to manage the scale. I appreciate that. And we've heard comments, going back to a meeting I participated in, suggesting the setback from Oak Hill Road, at some of those upper floors. So I'm pleased to see that's continued. The ongoing question is that south facade. Can I ask, there's an image that you include on your drawing 3.7 that you showed separately over here. The view of Oak Hill Road, looking up the hill. Can we put that on the screen, please? So I'm not sure if this one includes the tree that, there are a couple trees that you added along that south
Yeah,
side.
the trees aren't showing it. It would be kind of.
It would
right
just
here.
peek in right there.
Yeah.
You know, what I see is a very vertical expression on the south facing facade, especially that bay with the narrow windows. And I think without significantly changing the massing, or really changing the massing at all, if there is something you could do, I know it would maybe be inconsistent with other parts of the building. But to break that vertical look, especially on the bay where you see those pair of windows right
Here where
there,
the.
right
where
there.
the
I think it was a
Julia
very
Bell
good move to put a tree right there. But I still would like to see something that creates a horizontal break in that part of the building. I think that this is the one view of the building that I find the building looks very, very bulky. And I suspect as you continue driving up that street, yeah, that look will continue until you get right in front of it, where you start to be more aware that you're only looking at I guess it's a 5-story facade at, overlooking, Oak Hill, is that right? It's four, okay, there's 4 at that street line, which I think is great. But as long as you can see that south, it's very, very tall. And I know that it's not really, I'm not suggesting a plan configuration changes to make it happen. But if there's something you can do with expression to mitigate that, I think it would be helpful. And that's the only other comments I have. I think with this much building on that much site, I think you've done a really nice job.
Thank you.
Travis?
I would second all of the previous comments. Appreciate that you got that 3-bedroom back in there. Appreciate how well the project displays itself. It just looks really well done now that you've terraced it. More of a question than a comment. Did fire have anything to say about this parking elevator thing?
No, and we've, our office has done maybe a dozen buildings over 20 years with them. So that they are a typical thing. They will be, there's always extra sprinklers. It's a much more robust sprinkler system. The machines are also all within the type 1 structure. This will be a type 3A over a 2-story garage in type 1. So they're fully enclosed in a type 1 concrete structure and fully sprinklered.
And to Commissioner Stanton's point, what did you say at the study session the turn time for a car call was?
It depends on exactly where you are. It's in the machine. It tends to be kind of like between 15 seconds and 60 seconds at the max. So
is it loud?
No, they're pretty quiet.
There's one in operation at 210 Lafayette Circle. You guys saw the building's constructed. It's a puzzler, they call it, up and down, side to side. And we actually, believe me, we looked at it closely before we designed it. So they are becoming more mainstream. We're doing them at 950 hub, just a single stacker. But they're critical to the success, obviously, of our project. So we will make sure they work, and the HOA will have the right maintenance programs and that sort of thing for ongoing maintenance, which these do take.
Yeah, and we've had systems in place for 15 years now.
Looks good.
Okay, I agree with the other commissioners. I like John's recommendation about that one area, about changing that. I mean, I didn't think of it myself, but I saw that problem about that uniformity and that mass, and that would change it quite a bit. That would improve it. I made a lot of comments last time in the study session. I don't want to repeat them all. I think the articulation, everything is very good. One positive comment I would like to make is I actually sat at ARC when the first design came in. It's a big improvement, very big improvement. And I appreciate the fact that even though this is a density bonus project, is that you've listened to us, you've made changes. We've had many density bonus projects that come back a second time. It's like, what changed? But thank you.
Thank you. And Isaiah's up for the challenge on that one facade, I can tell you. It'll probably be done by about 11 to 9 is my guess.
Okay, so we need to make a resolution, or yes.
The recommendation, I believe, is to forward it to the planning commission with the comments that you've given.
Okay, so we want to forward it to the planning commission with the comments regarding detailed look at the parking and the lifts. The facade on the south, minor change to the facade on the south. And what else do we have?
Landscaping, I think just would be good if they had a little more detail on the
On the
landscape.
plantings and the
More
proper,
detail.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's worded correctly for resolution, but do we have a second on that?
Yes. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay. So I don't know if I made a mistake because John's agenda has Bowman before what we just did. And mine that I printed out has Bowman as B.
Did not make a mistake. We had initially published before the deadline with that order and then switched them again for the deadline. Jeannie, I believe, is on the East Coast. We wanted to be sensitive to her time.
Ah, okay.
Thank you.
So we have project HDP 0725 GR 17-24 Bowman. This is a cut and fill operation that will occur on 1801 Delray Street. And we have Madison presenting for staff.
Thank you so much. Yeah, to accepting. I'm gonna join as a panelist and get the screen sharing set up and then I'll begin.
Okay. I'm gonna check the skill. Sorry. I'm impulsive. It's on the screen, Glenn, hurry up.
I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Madison Leonard. I'm the project planner for HDP 0725 GR 17-24 for the proposed grading work at 1801 Delray Street. Before I begin, I'd like to provide some background on the project site. The subject parcel and the existing home on the site, which is currently under construction, were both approved through Senate Bill 9, also known as SB 9. SB 9 allows for the approval of urban lot splits and urban housing developments ministerially, so without public hearing. The SB 9 urban housing development application included components such as the new residence, retaining walls, and drainage systems. As part of the conditions of approval for that project, SB 90324 is required to provide landscape plans as well. Those landscape plans have been deferred to final inspection of the SB 9 housing development application in order to meet and comply with C3 stormwater requirements, which are reviewed by our city engineer. Objective standards for an SB 9 urban housing development require import and off-haul of soil be limited to a maximum of 200 cubic yards for grading outside of the building footprint. Therefore, the applicant has submitted this grading permit, GR 1724, for subsequent grading outside of the building footprint. This grading is unrelated to the construction of the housing development. Therefore, it's reviewed separately under GR 1724. Going into the project scope, which includes grading of 500 cubic yards of earth, all to be balanced on site to create usable outdoor area for the approved residents. No trees will be removed, no new structures will be constructed, and no new impervious surface area are part of this grading permit. On the left-hand side of the screen, you will see a vicinity map of the site outlined in green, showing the location within the northeastern portion of Lafayette and the edge of city boundaries. On the right-hand side, we will see a more zoomed-in version of the site in green, which is approximately 1 acre. The site slopes generally west to east. The site is also located within the Hillside Overlay District and is zoned R40. On screen, you will see the submitted grading plan as part of the project. The cut area is shown in yellow in the northwest corner of the site. That area will provide fill in the southern portion of the site to level out the swale and create a flat usable area for the home. This area would gently slope from the west to the east. There's also a riprap layer, which is shown in the southern area for stormwater drainage, which accompanies other approved drainage as part of the SB9 housing development application. Project was noticed to 22 surrounding neighbors and posted 10 days in advance of the meeting. 5 neighbor support letters were provided at the time the application was submitted. No other public comment was received.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Madison?
And very quickly, staff recommends that the DRC find the project exempt from CEQA and adopt resolution 2025-02 approving the project subject to conditions.
Sorry for cutting you off.
And that completes the presentation.
Okay, no questions, applicant? 10 minutes to say something?
No.
No comments? Okay. Do we have any comments from Zoom or the audience?
We have one member of the audience. If they'd like to raise their hand to comment on this project, they can do so now. No hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay, so we're gonna have a rebuttal? No. Okay, well, the game's over. I don't care. Travis, why don't you start this one?
I have no comments on this. No trees, no impervious surfaces, keeping it all on site. Yeah, I have no.
Okay,
problem with this.
John?
No comments or concerns.
So I'll just say, I had one concern when I first looked at it, which was that it appeared that this whole project was sort of being a piecemeal thing where there was a approval of the home there. We're now looking at grading, and then there's going to be a subsequent approval for landscaping. I think that the city's being nice to the applicant and indulging them that way. But other than that, I think it's a very straightforward application. I don't have any issues with it.
Okay. And I have no issues. I appreciate the fact that you did make contact with neighbors and gave us their comments. So I put this up for adoption of.
Yeah, I'll make a motion if you want, that we find the project exempt from CEQA and adopt resolution 2025-02, approving the project subject to standard conditions.
We have a second?
Second.
John seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, last item for today. Park volunteer. I'll volunteer unless someone else is biting at the bit. Okay,
No.
so we have, I didn't copy the third page of the agenda. Do we have any commissioner comments?
Commissioner reports.
Commissioner reports? Staff reports?
Yes, I did want to just remind you all, the mayor's state of the city is in 3 weeks on Monday, May 31st from 6 to 8 upstairs in the John Hatson Community Hall. You do not need to RSVP, but please do know you're invited. I understand it's meant to double as a thank you and honoring of all of our volunteers on the commission and committee.
Do I need to eat in advance?
There will be snacks.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
Okay, that's it. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
You.